Jesse's Jabber with a friendly face. Welcome into your favorite space. If it's on his mind or it's in the air, and you've got a minute, drag up the chair. It's a little bit of this, a little bit of that. Stay a while and enjoy the chat. Jesse's Jabber, Jesse's Jabber. Time goes by and life goes faster. Take a minute just to clear your head. Maybe there's comfort in the words that he says. Going through life with his kids and his wife. Throws in sports and some PS5. No hot takes, he just shoots it straight. Just a regular guy at the end of the day. If you found your way through the endless noise and clatter, listen in, maybe tell a friend. This is Jesse's Jabber.
Great white whale has hauled a lot of teams over the years. Not just baseball teams, family teams. It's carried a Little League All-Star, basketball players, soccer players, exhausted parents, folding chairs, coolers, half-empty Gatorades, dirty cleats, forgotten gloves, and enough fast food wrappers to feed a small army. If you look closely at the floor mats, you probably still find red Alabama clay mixed with beach sand from several summers ago, and enough sunflower seed shells to clog a storm drain. Some weekends, those rides home are loud. Everybody's replaying the game, arguing over where we're stopping to eat, or trying to convince us they aren't tired at all, and yet fall asleep before we leave the parking lot. Other rides are quiet. You could tell when somebody struck out with the bases loaded. You could tell when a tough loss is still sitting in the back seat. Nobody says much. The engine hums, the tires roll down the highway, and everyone's just kind of there. After enough miles, you start noticing. The teams everybody remembers aren't always the ones with the most talent. They're the ones that actually enjoyed being together. This is Jesse's Jabber, outnumbered, overstimulated, and on the mic. Let's get into it. Welcome in. I'm glad you're here. We've all seen it. One team has the best players in the league, but every mistake turns into somebody rolling their eyes. Every inning has somebody blaming somebody else. Parents are frustrated. Coaches are frustrated. Kids are frustrated. They're talented enough to win, but nobody seems to like being there. And then there's another team. Maybe they're not the biggest. Maybe they're not the fastest. Maybe they don't have the strongest lineup. But somebody makes a great play, and everybody celebrates. Somebody makes a mistake, and 3 teammates are already telling them, shake it off, get the next one. They pick each other up. They laugh together, and somehow, they always seem to play better than people expected. The difference usually isn't talent, it's chemistry. That isn't just true on athletic courts and fields. It's true at work. It's true in marriages. It's true in friendships. It's true in churches. It's true in every family sitting around a dinner table tonight. Every one of us is on a team somewhere. Thinking along those lines led me to one of the questions I've been thinking about this week. What makes someone safe to go through life with? Not successful, not funny, not impressive. Safe. If you've ever had someone completely in your corner, you know exactly what I'm talking about. You've probably also had somebody who made every room feel heavier the second they walked in. One person makes us feel like we can take on the world. The other makes us question whether we even belong on the team. Think about the people we've worked with over the years. There's always that one coworker who made even the busiest day manageable. Somebody who stayed calm when everything else was falling apart. Somebody who didn't throw people under the bus just to make themselves look better. We trusted them because we knew exactly who they were going to be when the pressure hit. Then there's the other kind. The person everybody quietly watches before speaking because nobody knows what mood they're bringing today. The one who keeps score. The one who always has to be right. The one who somehow makes every problem bigger than it already is. Same workplace, different teammate. The same thing happens in our homes. I've said before that the greatest teammate I've ever had is Maria. Not because we figured everything out. Believe me, if you've ever tried raising 12 kids under one roof, you know there's days when figuring it out, it isn't even on the menu. Some days it's survival. Some days, somebody forgot their shoes. Somebody else forgot their homework. One kid can't find a baseball bat. Another one suddenly remembers there's a school project due in about 12 minutes. The dog throws up. The phone starts ringing. Somebody's arguing over whose turn it is to empty the dishwasher. Meanwhile, we're standing in the middle of it, wondering how in the world it's just 7:15 in the morning. Those are the moments when you're grateful it isn't just you carrying the load. That's when having the right teammate means everything. Maria and I aren't competing against each other. We're playing on the same team. And that changes everything. When one of us has a rough day, the other picks up a little more of the load. When one of us is discouraged, the other reminds us why we're doing this in the first place. When one of us gets it wrong, and trust me, we both had our turns. We're trying to solve the problem instead of trying to prove who caused it. That's what teammates do. The thing that adds perspective and played a part in the thoughts for this episode is the 12. The 12 are watching every bit of it. They're learning what marriage looks like long before they ever say, I do. They're learning what friendship looks like, what forgiveness looks like, what encouragement sounds like, how conflict gets handled, how apologies are made, how respect is shown. We're not just raising children. We're raising future husbands and a future wife, future coworkers and bosses, future coaches and players, future neighbors and friends, future dads and a mom. Someday, every one of them is going to be a part of somebody else's team. A company's going to hire them. A church is going to welcome them. A spouse is going to depend on them. Friends are going to trust them. Maybe one day, they'll have children sitting around their own dinner tables, watching them the same way they watch us now. That's a sobering thought, because sports eventually end. School eventually ends. Jobs eventually change. But learning how to be a good teammate, that's a skill that follows you everywhere you go. I think our society has actually convinced itself that good teammates are born. But I don't believe that. I think they're built. One decision at a time. One conversation at a time. One apology at a time. One sacrifice at a time. One ordinary Tuesday at a time. A healthy team, a healthy family, a healthy workplace. Those things don't happen by accident. Somebody decides what kind of culture they're going to build. That's true in locker rooms and dugouts. It's true in offices. And it's absolutely true inside a home. Because every home has a culture. The question isn't whether our family has one. The question is, what kind of culture are we creating? I mentioned that a healthy team doesn't happen by accident, and neither does a healthy locker room. That's true whether we're talking about a baseball dugout, a workplace, a church group, or the living room at home. We don't end up with peace, trust, and chemistry just because good people ended up in the same space. We end up there because a standard gets set, and everybody, over time, either steps into it or steps out of it. Every one of those places has a culture. The only question is whether it's being built on purpose or just happening by default. Because there's a big difference between a room full of people and a room full of teammates. A room full of people can coexist. A room full of teammates knows how to carry each other. One of the biggest differences between the two is whether people feel like they can drop the armor and let their guard down. That's really what a healthy locker room is. It's not a place where everybody pretends to be perfect. It's a place where you don't have to pretend at all. But let me say something clearly, because this gets misunderstood. A healthy locker room is not a soft locker room. Those two are very different things. Soft spaces avoid truth. Healthy spaces tell the truth with the right heart. Soft spaces let everything slide so nobody gets uncomfortable. Healthy spaces care too much to let people stay stuck. Soft spaces protect feelings at the expense of growth. Healthy spaces protect people while still demanding growth. There's a toughness in a healthy team that a lot of people don't talk about because it's easier to be quiet than it is to be honest. It's easier to ignore the issue than to address it the right way. But the best teams, the ones that actually last, don't avoid hard conversations. They just refuse to turn those conversations into personal destruction. That's the difference. And that's where chemistry really shows up. Because chemistry isn't just laughing together on the good days. Chemistry is how we treat each other on the hard ones. It's how we respond when somebody messes up, how we handle tension. It's how we talk when nobody else is listening. And I've seen enough of life to know this. Talent can get a group of people into the same room. Chemistry decides whether they stay there together. We can have the most talented group in the world, but if everybody is protecting themselves first, it falls apart because nobody trusts anybody. And without trust, every conversation turns into suspicion. Every correction turns into an attack. Every disagreement turns into something personal. But when trust is there, everything changes. Correction doesn't feel like an attack. It feels like someone trying to help us win. There's this thing that matters in every locker room, every marriage, every friendship, and every workplace. Accountability. But not the version people are afraid of. Real accountability. The kind that builds people instead of breaking them down. There's a line I've heard before that's kind of stuck with me. Flattery can hurt you. Criticism can protect you. But only if it comes from the right person, in the right way. That's the key. Because accountability isn't the problem. It's how it's delivered. A good teammate can look us in the eye and say, "That's not like you. You're better than that." And somehow, that lands differently than someone saying, "You're a problem." One speaks to our identity. The other attacks it. One calls us up, the other pushes us down. Great coaches understand this. A good coach doesn't destroy a kid because he missed a ground ball. He teaches him how to field the next one. He might correct him. He might challenge him. But the goal is to never make the kid feel small. The goal is to make the kid better. And honestly, that's how we're supposed to treat each other in life. At home, at work, in friendships, in marriage, especially in marriage. Because if there's one place where accountability matters, it's in the daily partnership of two people trying to build a life together. And I'll say it plainly. Maria and I have learned this over time. We've had moments where one of us needed correction. Moments where one of us needed patience. Moments where one of us needed grace more than explanation. But we've also learned that if the goal is always to win the moment, you lose the relationship. And if the relationship suffers, nobody wins anything that matters. That's why good teammates don't ask, how do I win this argument? They ask, how do we get back on the same side? Because if we're on the same team, the goal is never to defeat each other. The goal is to move forward together. And that's where trust starts showing up, in the small things. Not big dramatic moments, small, ordinary, repeatable ones. Doing what we said we'd do. Showing up when we said we would. Owning our mistakes without excuses. Following through when nobody's watching. That's how trust is built, one brick at a time. And most people don't notice it building until one day it's there. Or it isn't. And when it isn't, everything feels harder than it should. Conversations feel heavier. Assumptions creep in. Even silence starts to feel suspicious. But when trust is there, life feels lighter. Even hard conversations don't feel dangerous. Because we know the person on the other side isn't against us. They're for us. So what do good teammates actually do when things get tense? They don't avoid conflict. They handle it. Because avoiding conflict doesn't protect a good team. It slowly weakens it. Good teammates don't let things sit and rot. They don't talk behind backs. They don't let frustration turn into silence that slowly builds distance. They address it. They clear the air. They break the huddle and move forward. Because they care more about the relationship than about being right. And somewhere in all of this, there's another question that sneaks in. Am I easy to work with? Not am I talented. Not am I impressive. Not am I useful when everything's going well. But when pressure hits, am I easy to work with? Because everybody's easy when things are easy. The real test shows up when things get messy, when emotions are high, when plans change, when someone drops the ball, when we don't get our way. That's when teammates show themselves. And that's when chemistry either holds or breaks. I think that's why this matters so much in a home. Because a home is the most honest locker room there is. There's no pretending there. No uniforms, no game face, no crowd noise to hide behind. Just people trying to live life together in real time. And when that's going well, it feels like peace. But when it's off, everybody feels it. Even if nobody says it out loud. Which is why this next question matters. Can the people closest to us rest easy knowing we're on their side? Or do they feel like they're walking on eggshells, depending on which version of us shows up that day? Because good teammates, don't make people guess. They make people feel secure. If there's one place where everything we've been talking about gets real, it's home. Not the highlight version of home, not the picture version, the real one. The one where somebody left their shoes by the door again. Somebody else is arguing about whose turn it is to empty the dishwasher. The dog's barking at nothing. And we're trying to remember if we already signed the permission slip or if that was yesterday's emergency. That's the locker room nobody sees. And it's also the one that reveals who we are as teammates. Because it's one thing to be a good teammate when everybody's rested and smiling and things are going our way. It's another thing entirely when nobody's at their best and everybody still has to function together. That's where marriage shows us what we're really made of. I can say this without hesitation. Maria is the best teammate I've ever had. Not because everything's easy. Not because we always agree. Not because we've figured it all out. But because we don't treat life like a competition between us. We treat it like we always have. Like something we're building together. There are days when one of us is running on fumes and the other one just steps in without needing a long explanation. There's days when one of us is frustrated. The other one doesn't try to fix it, doesn't try to win it, just steadies it. There's days when we don't say much at all, but we both know the same thing. This isn't you versus me. This is us versus everything else that's trying to pull this life apart. That changes how we talk to each other. Changes how we correct each other. Changes how we forgive each other. Because teammates don't keep score the same way opponents do. I think that's one of the biggest shifts in any relationship that actually lasts. We stop asking, did I win that moment? And we start asking, did we stay on the same team through that moment? That's a different way to live. And it's not just marriage, it's everything. Because the same people we sit across the table from every night are the same people who are watching how we handle frustration, disappointment, correction, and stress. The 12. The 12 aren't just growing up in a house. They're growing up on the team. They're watching how two people disagree. They're watching how apologies sound when they're real. They're watching how patience looks when it's tested. They're watching how respect holds up when nobody's in the mood for it. And without us ever sitting them down for a formal lesson, they're learning what kind of teammate they're going to become. That's a heavy thought, but it's also a hopeful one. Because it means change doesn't start somewhere far away. It starts right here, in the way we talk to each other when we're tired, the way we respond when something doesn't go our way, the way we treat people when they're at their worst instead of their best. Good teammates don't just perform when things are going well. They stabilize things when they're not. And that's something we've had to learn in real time as a family. There are 12 kids learning how to live in the same space, share the same attention, deal with the same rules, and figure out who they are in the middle of all of it. That means conflict isn't rare. It's normal. But what matters is what we do with it. Because conflict, handled the right way, doesn't destroy a team. It actually strengthens it. When we address things directly instead of letting them fester, something interesting happens. We get closer, not further apart. When we can say, hey, that didn't feel right, without turning it into a personal attack, we clear space for understanding. But when things go unspoken, they don't disappear. They just grow. And eventually, they start shaping the atmosphere in ways nobody planned. That's why good teammates don't avoid hard conversations. They just refuse to let those conversations turn into damage. And somewhere in that process, we start learning the difference between selflessness and selfishness in real time. Because it shows up in the smallest moments. Who gets the last word? Who gets the credit? Who gets the easy task? Who takes the harder one without making it a production? It's easy to be a good teammate when we're the one scoring. It's harder when our role is to set the screen so somebody else can take the shot. But that's where real teams are built. Not in the spotlight moments, in the unseen ones. In the moments where nobody's keeping track except our own conscience. And I think that's where a lot of people miss it. They think being a good teammate is about personality, or talent, or how likable we are. But most of the time, it's just consistency in small sacrifices. Choosing we instead of me over and over again until it becomes who we are. And the truth is, nobody notices most of those choices in real time, but everybody feels them over time. Because the people around us either feel supported or they don't. They either feel like we're on their side or they don't. They either feel like they can trust us in the middle of pressure or they hesitate. And that's where chemistry lives. Not in big speeches, not in big moments, but in the quiet pattern of how we treat people when it would be easier to avoid them altogether. I think that's what I want the 12 to carry with them more than anything. Not just how to succeed, but how to be the kind of people others want on their team. The kind of people who make life lighter for the people around them. The kind of people who don't walk into a room and raise the tension, but lower it. The kind of people who know when to speak, when to listen, when to step in, and when to step back. Because if they learn that, everything else has a foundation. Something that matters just as much as conflict and selflessness is how we handle the moments when nobody's watching our response. The quiet moments, the in-between moments, the moments that don't get remembered by anyone except the people living them. That's where character lives. Some of the most important moments in life don't happen in front of anybody. They happen in the quiet, when the house finally settles down, when the phone stops buzzing, when the day's done and nobody needs anything else from us. That's usually when the truth shows up. Not the version of us we show everybody else, but the version of us that's left when there's nothing left to perform for. And in those moments, another question tends to surface. What kind of teammate am I really being when nobody's keeping score? Because good teammates aren't just known for what they do in big moments. They're known for what kind of atmosphere they bring into the ordinary ones. Every room has a temperature, and every person either adds to it or changes it. Some people walk in, and everything tightens up a little. People get quieter, people get more guarded. The energy shifts, and nobody really says why. And then there's people who walk in, and things loosen up. People breathe easier. People talk a little more freely. People feel a little more like themselves. That's the difference between being a thermometer and a thermostat. A thermometer just reads the room. A thermostat changes it. Good teammates don't just reflect the energy around them, they set it. And that shows up everywhere. At home, at work, in friendships, in marriage, in every team you'll ever be a part of. I think that's where the question gets personal. When people are around us, do they feel more tense are more at ease? Do they feel like they have to protect themselves? Or do they feel like they can be themselves? Do they leave conversations with us feeling lighter or heavier? Because chemistry isn't some abstract sports idea. It's emotional impact over time. And that impact is either building trust or slowly eroding it. That's why accountability matters the way we talked about earlier. That's why encouragement matters. That's why trust matters. That's why conflict matters. Because all of those things are really just different ways we affect the people we're closest to. And somewhere in the middle of all this, I keep coming back to something simple. Are we easy to work with? Are we easy to live with? Are we easy to be around when things aren't going our way? Because anybody can be enjoyable when life's easy. The difference is who we are when it isn't. And that's something I've asked myself more than once. Because at the end of the day, I don't just want to be surrounded by good teammates. I want to be one. And I want the same thing for Maria. I want the same thing for the 12. Because this whole thing we're building at home isn't just about getting through the day. It's about shaping people who know how to go into the world and make it better by just being in it. That's the real goal. Not perfection, not performance, but character. People who know how to sacrifice me for we. People who know how to encourage without being fake. People who know how to correct without tearing down. People who know how to stay loyal when it would be easier to walk away. People who know how to handle conflict without burning bridges. That's what good teammates actually do. And that's what lasts longer than any scoreboard ever will. Nobody remembers every stat line. Nobody remembers every win or loss. But everybody remembers how they felt being around us. And that's what sticks. That's what carries forward. That's what gets passed down without us even realizing. It's funny how much life happens inside the Great White Whale. The miles, the noise, the arguments over snacks, the laughter that comes out of nowhere, the quiet rides after long days when nobody has much left to say. The 12 in the back, Maria and I in the front seats, and a whole lot of life happening between the driveway and wherever we're headed to next. And I believe if that van could talk, it wouldn't just tell stories about baseball games, tournaments, long weekends, and vacations. It would tell stories about chemistry, about how people learn to live together, about how they learn to forgive each other, about how they learn to show up for each other. That's what all this really is. A long road of learning how to be the kind of teammate somebody else can count on. So here's the challenge for this week. Don't grade the people around us. Look in the mirror, in our family, in our job, in our friendships. Ask one simple question. Am I a safe harbor or a stormy sea? And then find one small way to set a screen for somebody else. Let somebody else take the shot. Let somebody else get the credit. Let somebody else breathe a little easier because we made the space better instead of heavier. Because that's what good teammates actually do. And that's what changes the locker room. That's what changes the home. That's what changes the life. This is Jesse's Jabber. Outnumbered, overstimulated, and on the mic. Drive safe. Hug your people. Be a good teammate. And we'll talk again soon.